Welcome, you guys. We are revisiting my 2024 NFL best ball drafts. My name is Rafael Ibarra. We are also doing Underdog Fantasy. We will look at that right now. My screen is trying to load. I don't know why you're not trying to log in today. But I do have them on this spreadsheet here. The teams that I am advancing are have a lot of players that I did call out. I'm sorry about my voice. I tried to do a 3-hour stream yesterday, and it was not working out for the best. I messed up StreamYard, and the recording was not on. It did not pick up my voice. Um, so we're gonna make this one a little bit shorter and not go into so much detail about uh, some further picks, but that will be up for discussion, of course, in the next coming videos um, up until the NFL 2025 basketball season begins in week 1. But I just lost a team, a Basketball Mania team with Jaden Daniels, one of my highest drafted quarterbacks last night in the Cowboys game because Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow went off again. So editing Daniels down to 13 teams. But 13 teams out of 34, 33 teams, 16% advance rate first time. Out of 112 teams, I believe that is relatively good for a starting underdog best ball or just best ball player in general. Hopefully this one will go through. Yes, it is. Excellent. Still alive. Best ball NFL. 120 back. Not too horrible. Two best ball teams. This is up to 105, and I was really getting happy about that one. But we still maintained the first place in the Greyhound. A lot of the teams that I did advance were either first place. And then there was a couple like second places. I think I probably lost another third place team that was teetering. I needed T to hit a little bit better than he did. He didn't hit as well. So you will see a lot of T Higgins on my teams. But we most likely got many of those continuing on the best ball in my continuing the best ball playoffs. Sorry. So Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Drake May on the first BBM team. On my first of 2 BBM teams, I had only drafted 20 BBM teams, so getting 10% of my BBM teams to go through is actually very nice. Would it be 10? Yes, I believe it would be 10% of my BBM teams, which looks very solid in retrospect, zooming out. So Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, 2 quarterbacks that I believe their coaching and their coordinators are going to allow them moving forward to have majority of the ball in their hands, whereas someone like a Jared Goff, even a Bryce Young that I was very high on, those guys will most likely have a more split 50-50 type game where they're not handling the ball as much. And that's going to hold down their value a little bit more. I think Justin Herbert was a good example of this. He was another one of my fades going into the season. A lot of people did like his value, but the way that Jim Harbaugh, their new coach, likes to design plays and his philosophy on the whole game shows that they're going to give the ball to their running back more than 50% of the time and let their defense and their run game and their O line be um, really big pieces in their offense. I was down a little bit on Lad McConkey just because of his size and he being banged up. He is still, I believe, hurt going into the Basketball Mania playoffs, but he is a guy that he is a wide receiver that should be was going in the, I believe, the right range. If he's going higher next year, I probably will not be picking him up as much. Like I said, I just don't think the way that they're gonna play the game, they're the Chargers won't be behind as much, and they're not gonna be passing the ball as much. Um, Also, if they get another wide receiver, that could also hurt Ladd's ability to make to be the number one on that team, like we saw in Georgia. Um, Brock Bowers was the number one, the true number one. But I'm getting a little bit carried off on what I'm trying to get done today. Um, but that being said, I do believe Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, the elite wide quarterbacks, are quarterbacks that you want going into the Best Ball Mania finals. That being said, I thought Jaden Daniels was an elite quarterback coming into his rookie season. I did also think Caleb was a really good prospect going into the season. However, the situation was a big piece in a lot of his effect in terms of his production and how he can blossom as a player. Now he still has his next year, I believe, the rest of this year, next year, and even maybe a third year to figure out what he is capable of doing. But right now, if I were to call um, Caleb's position moving forward, I think his ceiling's probably a Dak Prescott type, um, with a little bit more mobility. I don't think he's as bad of a quarterback as Kyler Murray, because of his height. I don't think he's not as fast as Kyler in the pocket, but his arm is about relatively the same. Um, and if he can get a little bit more accurate, he could be a decent play moving forward. But Caleb is a quarterback that I was kind of wrong on this year. But then again, when I was thinking of the situation, um, I was right about the situation, but was willing to go into the Bears. Was willing to go in on the Bears because of their what their schedule entailed, weeks 15, 16, 17. And I thought by then Caleb would be showing signs of being a competent quarterback, even with their bad coaching, because he had the pieces around him as well. Drake May on this team is just a play that I do like the three quarterback build more than the two quarterback build. I'm also a believer in the bye week. So the bye week bros, just to cover my pieces if I need. I think 13 points is better than 0 points at any position. Um, and especially at the quarterback position. So getting three quarterbacks was essential in my process going forward in this WrestleMania season. James Cook was a running back that I thought was gonna be in a good situation. Um, I liked him a little bit more than the other running backs, such as a Josh Jacobs. When hearing analysts' opinion and when just watching his game, I believe he probably just got unlucky with getting touchdowns, and he got a couple more this year, so which is nice. I do think Ray Davis is a nice pickup though for next year, and I think he's gonna get a little bit more of the work moving forward. Tony Pollard. This was one of my calls, and I'll pull it up right now. Um, NFC, AFC South. I had Where's Pollard at? I had Pollard as my favorite Tennessee Titan with 12.2% on my teams, whereas Tajay Spears I only had at the 2.6% on my teams. Um, I just believed that one, they signed. So a big thing I want to let you guys know about, and I thought that was very refreshing and just a good analytical thought on my end, was coach speak is very important. Coach speak throughout the season. How good you think a coach is going to be. Another thing is like drawing up plays and such. If the coach is good in terms of the players, so I was wrong about Sean Payton being a good coach. I don't think he's Super Bowl worthy once more. I don't see him with another Drew Brees type, but I do think Bo Nix is a competent quarterback to get him into the playoffs year in and year out to fight for playoffs, playoff spot. So I was a little bit down on the Broncos this year because of my coach analysis on Sean Payton. Um, but he's not gonna be the Broncos aren't gonna be a major team moving forward that I'm gonna be looking at. Unless they have all their pieces together. Um, so like I think the Steelers are outdoing what the Broncos are doing, just because um Mike Tomlin was able to be more productive with Russell Wilson, and moving through the years that he has had as a winning coach, Tomlin. Um, so I guess I should have been more on the Steelers. I don't quite remember how much Steelers I had. I was kind of diverse on the Steelers. I liked Fryermuth's draft position, and he was only like the number two pass catcher in that offense. I only had 2.6% Roman Wilson. I thought I had more. I got like one share of Van Jefferson, but I wish I had about 8 to 9% um, Calvin Austin, because I think he's going to be a really important piece moving forward, at least for this year and maybe even next year as well. Um, Moving on to, I just thought going back to Tony Pollard, that's a roundabout way of saying the coaches were in on him. They paid him money, and Tajay Spears, the coaches were out on him more so. Um, Not out on him. It's just that they clearly had Tony Pollard ahead of Tajay Spears, and I thought that Tajay Spears' draft capital was a bit too high for our liking. Um, Jonathan Brooks, excuse me. I was doing that yesterday as well. Jonathan Brooks, he was hit with a lot of unfortunate news this past week, with the injury. It's not great. It's good for me. It's not great for him, and it's not great for the Panthers, I don't believe. Um, and it's going to delay his productivity moving forward. He's going to lose a full another year, most likely, to recover from that yet again. Um, but I think that Jonathan Brooks compared to Tajay Spears, Tajay was already in said team with a new head coach, wasn't picked by them. I could see Tajay being a interesting running back that goes to a new team, and maybe that will be a place that you want. So say he goes to the Rams behind Kyron, then's when you want Tajay, because the Rams would then pick up Tajay and want Tajay. Um, but because Brooks was drafted by the Carolina Panthers, you could see it playing out that through weeks 15, 16, and 17, Brooks was the guy you needed. Brooks was never my running back one or two on any of my teams. We'll go through some more of my teams, but he was always like the number three running back at least. Um, I liked to get at least one running back in the first 4 to 5 rounds, or the sixth round if possible. So like a Kenneth Walker, a James Conner. Um, I was very high on Pacheco. I had for 12 to 14% on Pacheco. We have to check that one more time. And seeing him on my second BBM team sneaking in with a Breeze Hall, with a James Conner, and with a Chuba Hubbard, all three running backs that have lots of volume is very nice. Now, if I had to choose between these two teams, I'd rather choose Team One versus Team Two, just because um, Team One and I'm probably in the way a little bit. My head here in this bottom right corner, but I like more strong wide receivers than running backs. The running backs on my first advancing BBM1 team are strong, but they're not too strong. I do like the tight ends on my BBM2 team more than my BBM1 team. But I like my BBM1 team or first advancing team, their quarterbacks more than my second advancing BBM2 teams. Almond Raw is a guy that you're going to see a ton of on my portfolio. I had him about 12.2% of Almond Raw. I thought I pushed him to 15%. But Amon Ra was a player that I was very much in on. I thought that this offense was going to be very good, and I thought they're going to be a little bit more pass heavy than they were. And I didn't see Jamison Williams as being that much of a threat to him. Now he is, so that scares me a little bit for the playoffs. But I think he's going to get a touchdown here and there. Hopefully he gets two. Hopefully he hits around 6 to 8 receptions a game. That's what I'm looking for. And about 70 to 100 yards a game, which would be really nice. And he hasn't really exploded just yet. So looking at his yards compared to last year's yards, he had so many yards compared to last year. That just shows how good the team is on the Detroit Lions. But by no means can this team. I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but they're just a really good football team. I don't think Jared Goff is as good as other people think, or is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. With the right pieces around him, he's more like a Dak Prescott that has gotten hot in the playoffs. Um, but in terms of the Super Bowl, I just don't see him raising a Super Bowl. To me, he doesn't have uh, enough mobility in the pocket as we are now transitioning into as an NFL squad. But moving back towards BBM, or best ball in general, Mike Evans not having Chris Godwin in there is a very nice play, stacked with Baker Mayfield. I think he'll get a lot more reads going into the Best Ball Mania finals. Um, and I think he's just gonna find a way into the end zone, hopefully, get more targets and more receptions as well. I don't know what their matchups entail, but they did lose one of their key cornerbacks, which is going to hurt their defense, which is going to probably allow them to be more pass heavy. Not having Bucky Irving also is going to make them most likely a more pass heavy team. Um, there is a lot. I did draft a lot of Jalen McMillan, and so that could work out as well. I'm not too sure if he's on many of these teams or not, um, but I did have him as my most exposed player going into this year as a wide receiver, just because we were hearing so much on Jalen McMillan, and that goes back to my original take. Um, T. Higgins, another really good coach speak um, wide receiver. He did not have a good game in week 14, but hopefully his weeks 15, 16, and 17 do show up. Um, so in that aspect, I'm glad that Jamar hit before the playoffs, the best ball playoffs, and hopefully T will be that guy. Hopefully, the Tennessee Titans will be more on Chase than T, and Burrow will figure that out and feed T the ball. Um, Terry McLaurin, number one in his offense with Jayton Daniels. If I had to pick, I'd wish I had Jayton Daniels on this team instead of like a Jonathan Brooks. Um, and then have like a Bucky Irving on this team, or someone other, or a Chuba Hubbard instead of a Braylon Allen. But I mean, this team is pretty nice. Nice four wide receivers. We have a competent 2 to 3 running backs, two good quarterbacks, kind of 2 to 3 good quarterbacks, and then we have Jake Ferguson, Jonnu Smith, and Mike Gesicki. Down here, Gesicki attached to Joe Burrow as well. So if Gesicki gets a good game and he pulls T. Higgins through, that will be nice. And then Josh Downs can just come into my lineup maybe if Richardson has another nice game. My second BBM team and my other only BBM team is Jordan Love, another wide receiver another quarterback, excuse me, that it's attached to a very nice head coach, offensive coordinator, Matthew Stafford, the same way. I see those two guys as about the same now. They're going to be competent. Daniel Jones was just a guy to hold the bye weeks for. Um, excuse me. And I thought Daniel Jones was, excuse me, just a good quarterback, very drafted very low. Um, Competent quarterback, drafted very low, and can have some rushing upside and had a true number one in neighbors. I don't think I have any neighbors teams. I might have one or two advancing, but he was another piece that I liked going into this year. Brees Hall was a running back. This is my only Brees Hall team, I believe. Um, I think he should go in that Jonathan Taylor range. I think Braylon Allen next year, if he shows what I hope he shows going into this next couple of weeks, he will morph more into a running back that gets more touches, and hopefully he'll be the David Montgomery of this two-headed backfield, or at least right now he's the more Zach Charbonnet, but hopefully he hits a big week like Zach Charbonnet, Braylon Allen does. Um, Isaiah Pacheco, a running back that you want, that I was decently high on the team. He's explosive. This team is more so running back centric now with Patrick Mahomes doing what he does best in the fourth quarter when they need him most. And then Ezekiel Elliott, it was just like he could be good, and clearly he was not. He was washed. He looked okay last year in the Patriots. Um, but we have Rico on the. I mean, what we have Chuba Hubbard on this team as well. Another running back that I was very heavy on and keen on going into this season, or I can show you here. But he is my favorite running back with a 21.2%, 33 shares of Chuba Hubbard. I really liked just my overall analysis on players, teams, coaches. This team has Jalen Waddle as my first wide receiver. Now, I wish that it was like Puka and Saquon or Puka and even Jonathan Taylor rather than Brees and Waddle. Well, maybe Waddle gets there in one of these weeks, next coming weeks, and Brees and Hall or Hall gets there as well if not, or comes back. I also have Cup stacked with Stafford, which looks very nice as well. He's getting healthier. He's the number two now with Puka being there. Jayden Reed, hopefully he hits a spike week or two. JSN really showing out that he is the number one in the wide receiver core. I think he just has better hands, in my opinion, than DK Metcalf. The Seahawks are realizing that, and he's morphed into more like a Doug Baldwin type, um, with more explosiveness, I would say, but can find a Doug Baldwin type with like Doug Baldwin's hands with like Tyler Lockett's um zone, finding the emptiness and stuff like that, empty spaces. I just think JSN is here to stay. However, um Gino is a quarterback that cannot deliver to 2 to 3 wide receivers. So JSN might be limited by that if he's double coveraged. Um, and if the Seahawks potentially move off DK come the next season or trade him for someone else. Um, but I think JSN should be nice this later in the year. So having JSN actually is nice on a BBM team. I have a lot of DK Metcalfs on my teams, which we will just which we will go through in a second. Um, but having JSN on a team with Jayden Reed this week looks really nice. Gabe Davis was just a pick that I just thought he was a little undervalued. Maybe Trevor was gonna hit him more so with deep passes. He got paid, so but he's just not a very good wide receiver. And then Brian Thomas, they drafted him, so he took basically that role of the Calvin Ridley role, and it was Gabe Davis. So that was a bad analytical spot on my part, but he wasn't expensive this year, Gabe Davis. In terms of best ball, Xavier Legette, same way. I think the Adam Thielen thing is gonna hurt me a lot. Come the Best Ball Mania season, but hopefully Xavier Legette can give me a couple catches and get me in the end zone to advance my team. And then we have Luke McCaffrey. Maybe they use him a little bit more going into the season. But hopefully it's more Terry still because I do have a lot more Terry than McCaffrey on these advancing teams, I believe. Brock Bowers, one of my highest owned tight ends. I believe my second highest owned tight end behind Trey McBride, 26% shares of Brock Bowers. Just a very good prospect. Everyone was high on him. I didn't like the place he was, his landing spot, but clearly he is a number one in any offense. He has the ability to be a Hall of Fame level tight end. If he can stay healthy, if he can continue to produce at this high of a level, knock on wood. Isaiah Likely is a tight end that hit week one. We haven't seen too much of him. Maybe he gets in the end zone, who knows? But it's just a pass catcher on that Ravens offense. And then John Smith has really came on through this year. Was really liked by Arthur Smith. A lot of people, very polarizing coach. But John, I think he know. Arthur Smith. I think he knows how to evaluate talent and get his better players the ball. Sometimes he makes boneheaded decisions, but I think the Johnu Smith over some guy like Kyle Pitts. The guy like Kyle Pitts was a correct evaluation by Arthur Smith. My Greyhound, I have Joe Burrow, Bo Nix, Kyron Williams. Kyron, I'd rather have probably another dead zone, or he's probably like a dead zone running back. Got there with the efficiency of the team. He's just a good player on a good team. Gets chunk yards. He was probably like the mega expensive Kareem Hunt that we needed this year. Um, but and because of this offense getting hurt a lot, he also was in a way a good pick. I had about 13% of Kyron, 19% Kyron. So I thought he was a very good pick. But next year he could be like that pick on. I think he'll still be on a good team next year, and they're gonna be pushing for a playoff spot, and he's gonna get a lot of touchdowns. He's a running back that can get a lot of touchdowns. However, if they bring on another running back, I am willing to look more at that guy than Kyron. Um, and then Puka is just a good overall player as well. But Kyron, just the guy you needed with touches, um, and touches and touchdowns. David Devin Singletary, he was there a little bit during the beginning of the season. I think it was just a bad evaluation on my part. He was very efficient on a good team on the Texans last year, but I think he's more like cheap James Conner. Let's say like the Bills weren't good. I think James Cook, excuse me, is just a bad pick. Zach Charbonnet, he's really coming on. Having him on this team, and not Kenneth Walker is very nice to see. Lots of Kenneth Walker on the other teams though. So having him on one of my preferred teams is very nice to see. This team was first place, my Greyhound team. So hopefully I can bring home the Greyhound, one of the BBMs or another team. I think I'm pretty confident in my guys. Zach Charbonnet was a back that I was very much in on as well, 16%. But I knew that in the coach speak it was more so Walker. Um, but Walker is like a James Conner type where he can get hurt, and they're not going to split the backfield. It's just going to be Charbonnet after that, like we have seen going through this year. I do believe going forward, those Zach Charbonnet can eat into the role. I think the Seahawks will be more more run centric next year. Um, and so being on the lesser running back is going to be something that I really keen in on. Um, Jerome Ford, he got me there through the before Chuba Hubbard. Before Jameson got in there, but I don't like seeing Ford on many of my teams. Um, Jerome Ford. Oops. Jerome Ford. Chuba Hubbard. My running back one. I think now that Jonathan Brooks is hurt, I think he should be fine. However, I think he plays the Cowboys that looked decent last night against the Bengals, and then he's gonna play uh Who's he gonna play? He's gonna play the Bucks and then some other team in between. Um, I think he'll get there. Hopefully, he'll be electric. And then I'll win a lot if he is super electric. Um, Keon Keaton Mitchell, I think is just an interesting back. He's getting some touches coming back from his injury. Maybe that will be interesting as well. Jamar Chase on this team is very nice. If T does not hit, I'll have Jamar. Malik Neighbors, like I said, I really liked Malik going into the season. Amari Cooper now with Josh Allen looks very nice. Brian Thomas being that number one in Jacksonville looks very nice. I was more so a Brian Thomas guy. So I had a lot of Brian Thomas teams in my in BBN in best ball, yeah, in best ball mania in the best ball mania tournament. Because I drafted a couple about half of my teams early, and I thought Brian Thomas was a better wide receiver or a wide receiver that I thought was um in a better situation with a better quarterback, but also he fit the wide receiver archetype that I like. A big guy that can move good, that has good hands. Um, so I think he's gonna get me there, but him going higher next year is gonna kind of scare me, especially if Trevor doesn't get the right head coach. Josh Downs on this team as a fifth wide receiver is very nice. Ricky Pearsall, now that he's coming along, you should be okay. And then Slayton Bowers, McBride, two very good tight ends with Tyler Conklin. Hopefully, Conklin can give me a nice floor for Trey McBride and Brock Bowers' ceiling. But that's my Greyhound, and I really like that one. The Greyhound injury was how much? I don't remember. I think it was it a lot? It was a $35 injury. Hmm. So for this one, I get how much back? I get 35 back. It was a single entry. Entry 35, winning 35. Oh, that's kind of sucks, but whatever. So I broke even in the Greyhound, which is nice. Or did I? Oops. Yeah, I broke even the Greyhound. That's nice. Oh, and that was a single entry. It's even better. Oh, that's sick. Well, the best man win the Greyhound. Going on to the fast puppy. My only team that advanced there. Lamar, like I said, elite quarterback. Goff, he's gonna give me, and Bryce, they're gonna give me a nice floor for Lamar. A nice high floor in my opinion. HN on this team, I think. I was not high owned. He wasn't very high owned for my teams. I'm not a Dolphins guy at all. I think Josh McDaniels is a very average head coach. Tua, very average quarterback. Um, and HN, his size really kept me away. Even though he's explosive, I think HN is a running back that is gonna. He has a breakout ability to hit like a 80, 90-yard touchdown run, or screen pass. I do think that because we now know, or the NFL now knows what he looks like, they can, the defenses can scheme up um, something for him not to be tackled, and I think that hurt HN. What also hurt him this year was not having Tua for a good while, but HN was just I could have been just very lucky in my analysis on HN as well. I think I only had like 4% HN, 4% HN, Devon HN, 4.5%. I had him more in bigger tournaments then, but 7 entries. Tony Pollard again, Jerome Ford again, Chuba Hubbard, J.K. Dobbins. Like I said, I believe my analysis was correct on that one. They're just gonna feed him the ball a lot. That's the way Jim Harbaugh rolls. Um, and then Davian Pierce is like a running back, whatever. I think um, I think Chuba was a very good team analysis pick. But the rest of my late round running backs, I think I need to analyze better. Um, so moving on to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stephon Diggs, I wasn't high on. I think Stephon, I thought was going to be the number 3 on that offense. Houston's not looking as good. Deontay Johnson was more like I liked the offense, and Ben Gretsch liked him as a player. But I think he would be like, if he stayed on the team, he would be what Adam Thielen is doing with Bryce's emergence. Um, but you win some, you lose some. 17%. Deontay Jordan Addison had a big game as well this last quarter. I was okay with Addison. Um, for me, it was just like there was different players that I was targeting during there. I don't know. And I thought Darnold wasn't going to be as good at the end of the season when I was seeing JJ McCarthy's production. I thought he was going to be better than Darnold. I still think he's going to be better than Darnold. Darnold playing with one of the best offensive lines this year and one of the best offensive head coaches offensive coaches in the league. I think McCarthy is going to have a lot more yards than Darnold. Let's look it up. Sam Darnold stats. 2024. He has 3,299 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. They'll be equivalent, I think. I think he's going to have a lot more rush yards, which is going to be a lot nicer for us than. I think he has the potential to put up, me talking about McCarthy right now, to put up Joe Burrow's first year in the NFL after coming off a season-ending rookie injury. I think he's just in a good position with a good offensive coordinator. Jim Harbaugh liked him. I'm probably gonna even am willing to say that Jim Harbaugh, if he wanted probably to get McCarthy and trade Herbert, if he were to pick, I think he would probably pick McCarthy over Herbert. Who knows? But that's something that is very interesting. Jerry Jeudy on this team, I had a little bit of Jerry Jeudy as well, but there's a lot of Davis, J.K. Dobbins, Chuba Hubbard's on my team, Pollard, Bryce Young, elite tight end. Elite tight end with Mark Andrews, and elite quarterback with Lamar. So here in the Puppy 2, we have Josh Allen. This is one of my only 2 shares of Alvin Kamara that are advancing. I was very low owned on Alvin Kamara. I think Kamara had like 3 shares, so 2 of my 3 shares moved on. Zach Charbonnet on this team, Chuba Hubbard again, Justin Jefferson, DK playing in week 16. DK and Jaden Reed playing in week 15. Rome Odunze and DK playing in week 17. Cole Kmet. So this is just a Seattle and Bear stack, which looks nice. We have Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels on the next team with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, I was more like slightly below the field at 5.1%. Moving forward, I'm probably not going to have. I kind of like the situation that he was on at. When I was drafting Mixon, it was more so draft Mixon and CJ and one pass catcher. Even just Mixon Bear like this, or CJ and Mixon to pull along CJ. Um, but I think I'm going to raise my floor a little bit if I do like a player but not totally in on him to about like 8 to 9%, and then like go staunch -3% to 0% on players that I'm just fading. But that's another take for another time. Brian Robinson Jr., player that I really liked this season as well. Oh, what was this? That was Kenneth Walker. Yeah. Devin Singletary on this one. Chuba Hubbard again. Braylon Allen once more. Garrett Wilson on this team with Malik Neighbors, two players that I liked. Michael Pittman was just a play that, okay, what if Richardson is good? But advancing a Pittman team is very interesting. I don't think a lot of teams are going to have a lot of Pittman advancing. Rome Odunze, another Odunze team with Gabe Davis, Luke McCaffrey again, Darius Slayton. So you see the guys that I really liked. This next team, Joe Burrow, Bryce Young again, and Daniel Jones. ETN, this is my only ETN team. I wasn't very high on ETN. Um, I just thought he was a little bit overpriced. I did like Pacheco over ETN. That's another reason why I liked other running backs before and behind ETN. I thought it was just a very ugly zone that ETN was going in. But he also got injured, and so did Pacheco. So maybe it could have been very nice for them as well. Walker on this team, Connor, a guy that I really liked as well, James Conner, 14.7%. That goes back to the coach speak. They do like James Conner, so I was not very in on Trey Benson. 3.2%. And then I even got like Amari DiMercado, a guy that I liked more than Trey Benson, so 2% of Amari DiMercado. Those ones didn't advance. That would be funny if I got one of those teams advancing. I advanced the Puka Marv team. I wasn't able to pick that up very much this season, but at least seeing one of these, a week 17 matchup looks very nice. I wasn't too in on Marv. I think if I had to choose, I would have faded Marv, but I just thought 7%. I just thought that Marvin Harrison Jr. was just a player that did not fit with Kyler Murray at all. I thought the Cardinals should have been going after the Malik Neighbors. I thought his play style would have fit Kyler Murray's play style ability a bit more. T. Higgins again on this team, Leggett, Davis, Burton with Burrow, I think. Yes. Burton T. Mingo on this team, and Slayton. Jonnu and George Kittle, two other good tight ends. So my only bad tight end or like below average tight end group is one of the BBM teams, but that one even has Jonnu. And then another one of my Puppy 2s, this team right here with Cole Kmet and Noah Fant. Jatavian Sanders, maybe he's coming back, but that's another tight end that I was liking in the later rounds, and he should be better moving forward. 16% Sanders, very cheap player on a very I think an offense that was going to be competent sooner rather than later in the Carolina Panthers. Finding a good offensive head coach, getting a couple of pieces on the offense, and Bryce Young just giving him time to develop and find what he is good at. Um, then in the puppy three, I do have um, Jayden Daniels once more, Bryce Young once more, and then Will Levis. I think he's hurt. I have Tajay and Pollard. I have Kyron, and I have Tyler Algier. Sorry, um, Tyler Algier was another player that I thought him and Bijan were a bit closer, like the Braylon, and not as close to Braylon and Brees, but I did think that he was going to eat into his work a little bit like he did last year. I think Bijan's solidified himself above Brees Hall and way above Tyler Algier. So Algier I was at I think 7%. Tyler Algier 7.7%. I think Bijan. I think I have even less of him because he was going so high. But if he's going towards like the end of round one, I think he would be a very nice pickup. I think all the round one guys next year are going to be very nice to diversify and not fade any of them. Justin Jefferson, elite wide receiver. T. Higgins. Having Ladd and Cortland Sutton, just another two wide receivers that I was kind of wrong on, but nice to see on my teams. Trey McBride, Kate and Tucker Craft. I wish I had 20% Craft and 0% Musgrave, but I do have a lot of Musgrave team. I did have a lot of Musgrave. I do have a couple of Musgrave teams that are advancing. Musgrave. Yeah, 11% Musgrave. Tucker Craft. Because of his injury, that's why I faded him so long. But there was an analysis that I liked. I really liked him as well. Shout out Andrew Erickson. Lamar Jackson on the second team with Bryce. I just really had a lot of Bryce. I really liked Lamar. Elite quarterback, I think you need to be willing to pay your price. Have one Saquon. This is like my one and only Saquon team that's moving forward with a Ramondre. I wish this is was like a Saquon Chuba team. That would have looked really nice. I do have my Amon-Ra, DK, Terry, Khalil Shakir looks very nice, and Adam Thielen. So maybe just like Jerome Ford or Ramondre gets me in. Dang it. Keeps me advancing. Ramondre, Steven. QJ if he catches a touchdown or something. We have Hunter Henry, which is decently nice, and then Evan Ingram, decently nice. So that's an okay team. If something goes right with Saquon, that will move on. Jake and Daniels, Gino was another quarterback that I really liked. Very underpriced. I think next year he'll be about the correct price, maybe even too high for my liking. Depends on where he goes next year. If he goes any higher than like Justin Herbert, where Justin Herbert goes this year, I think I'm going to be out on him because, like I said, I think the Seahawks are going to be very run centric next year. Not as much as Jim Harbaugh, but very run centric and defensive. Forward looking, I think the Seahawks are going to be a very, very good team. Thank God. It's been 10 years since we were playoff bound and looking good in the playoffs. Rico Dowdle on this team, Tony Pollard. So this is like the emergence of Dallas handoff from one year to the next. But we have David Montgomery on this team as well, which looks very nice. Look at that, Nick Mullins. See, I thought like if Sam Darnold was supposed to, this is probably one of the later teams. Um, so I heard like Sam Darnold was gonna play the whole season, maybe. So I was hoping like he wasn't so good. We pick up a Nick Mullins team with the Justin Jefferson team, and maybe that happens still. I mean, maybe he goes and Darnold goes down or something. We had Nick Mullins. Um, Mike Williams. I think it was just like I thought Rodgers was gonna be better. Mario Douglas, just low. Two players that were just going lower. And Jalen McMillan, like I was saying, good coach speak and good, and then down here, good tight ends that I liked. Um, this is my only. This team looks really weird. I do have Trevor on this team. This next team, I have Kamara, I have Brooks. Dobbins is probably dead now. Will Shipley, CD Lamb. I wasn't too high on Lamb. I think he'll go in a better range next year. But without Dak, he's just a whole different player. Lots of targets, not a lot of yards compared to those targets. Last night, I think he only had like 4 to 5 receptions. He had a big reception, which looked nice, but he did play the Bengals. We are seeing DK Metcalf on this team, Terry McLaurin, Brian Thomas, Xavier Leggett. A couple of my wide receivers that I like this year. So we're seeing a lot of the same players, but hopefully they do hit in the way that I think. This one was very interesting. This puppy slow with Bo Nix, Jane Daniels. We have Austin Eckler, a guy that I wish I had. Zero Ezekiel Elliott, 11%. I wish I had way more Austin Eckler. 9%. Almost the same, but I wish it was more Eckler than Zeke. I thought Eckler was just going way too low, and probably another running back that will probably go not as high next year, but he'll probably go in the range that Aaron Jones was going in. I can see Eckler even moving to Minnesota, and that would be a nice place for him to go. Marshawn Lloyd, he'll probably have a chance next year to do good. But this year, I don't know what happened to him. Marvin Harrison, Tank Dell as two wide. My 1 and 2 is not so nice to see. You would rather see like a Puka, Amar, I'm sorry, an Amon Ra, a Justin Jefferson, but this is probably my weakest team advancing team. Not so good of a pod than I expect. Maybe that one just didn't move on. Actually, was that the puppy slow? We can check that out. Nope, still got that one. Second place. Yep. So that was very interesting. Tim Patrick on that team. Jalen McMillan comes on. Jordan Addison coming on. Probably right here. That's why I had so many points. George Kittle and Jonnu Smith on that team. Now we have a lot of Justin Fields over here in the Pomeranians and the Chihuahua 3. Chuba, we have Mixon, Jayden Daniels, guys that I liked. Tony Pollard, another guy that I liked. Puka, Nakua, Drake London, a guy that I did not like. I thought that Kirk Cousins was a very decent quarterback, and I thought the coach was a very decent quarterback coach. He wasn't great, and a defensive-minded coach as well. So I was very off on Drake London. I was also off on Zay Flowers. I just wasn't into Lamar as the passer. But Zay showed me a little bit last in the regular playoffs, and now this season where I'm probably going to be more in on him moving forward. George Pickens, a guy that I was kind of in on. I had let's see, I want to say like 7 to 12% Pickens. I know that's a big range. 7% Pickens. I just thought he was a decent pick. I didn't know how good Russ was gonna be, but I thought he was gonna be more competent, which is why I was okay getting Pickens. I wish half, however, Pickens isn't like a T, so I really would rather have like T Higgins on this team, or even like Terry McLaurin on this team rather than George Pickens. But I mean, it's different, and this is one of the teams that is just very different compared to the other ones that I am advancing. So maybe that one wins me something. Um, so you can still pick guys that you're not too much in on, I'd say, but just to get a little bit different. Um, the next teams have Joe Burrow. A lot of them do Joe Burrow, and the Pomeranian. Fields, Caleb, and then we have Trevor on one, Richardson on one. We have Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor as a combo, which is very interesting that I don't have a lot of advancing. DeAndre Swift on one of them. Swift was like, yeah, I was out on Swift. He's looking all right though. His offense is just not working with Caleb, and that offensive coordinator is just not it. He could be another running back that could be pretty good next year, or at least competent to get us as like a zero RB running back. Um, Josh Jacobs, one of my only Josh Jacobs shares. Moving on this team with Jamar, DK, my Brian Thomas Jr., Josh Downs. Um, just a lot of good teams. This is probably like the weakest team right here, the far left one. Um, with Kyron, probably not the nuts and bolts. James Cook, not the nuts and bolts. I do have Alexander Madison. I got a couple Alexander Madison shares at 3.2% of him. I was more in on him in the beginning of the season. Was not in on the other Raiders back. I can't even think of his name right now. It's number 3. What is his name? Raiders. Samir White. 2.6% Samir White. I was just a good picker this year, in my opinion. DJ Moore was a good pick of mine, I think. I think he still has a potential to look nice. DJ Moore, 10.3%. I had more DJ Moore than Rome Odunze, I think, or Rome just above him at 12. And then Allen, I was really out on with a 5% on. But he's looking all right too as well. And then Chris Godwin, one of the only wide receivers. I didn't have a lot of Godwin, so kind of good that he didn't hit through the rest of the season. I only had maybe, guess I don't like the name Chris, huh? 3.2% of him. Then Cleve Raymond on this team, which is kind of funny. Tucker Craft, Mark Andrews on one of this teams, and their JSN teams. This is a Romeo Dobbs team. I was more so even on the Green Bay Packers. You look them up. But there's a lot of teams that have the same amount of players. A lot of my picks that I really liked. Rico Chuba, Bijan on this team. Khalil Herbert. I think he just does not look good. He looked like explosive for like one play in the preseason. I was like, I'm gonna get him. He looked good. So that was a wrong pick by my part with the Herbert. I think Herbert, I had like crap ton of Herbert, 21%, but he was low. He was very drafted low, so I was like, okay, it's fine. Audric Estime, hopefully he's coming on. Estime, 14% of him, which looks decent. 3 carries in week 13 though, not great. Maybe they'll get him running the football. Um, Jaden Reed, though, another Jaden Reed team. D Hop, a new offense. D Hop, I was kind of in on, and then he got hurt, and then I was out on him. So that's why that one's at 7.7%. But he was in a nice range where he was going. JSN on this team as well. Mike Evans. This is just an interesting mix of players on that team. Garrett Wilson, Nico on this next team. Wish I had Rasheed on that one. But I do have three really nice running backs. Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, Rico Dowdle. Then I have Lamar at wide quarterback. Then I have George Kittle at tight end. So maybe if Lockett hits something, maybe Lockett goes off. I had a lot of Lockett. I think that was just I didn't see him doing that horrible this year, but for some reason he did. Um, Next team is another Saquon team actually, which is nice, and an Aaron Jones team. Like I said, I wasn't too in on the Vikings. They have very much surprised me this year. So we'll be super high on them. I was when I was seeing McCarthy doing well, but then I got off of them once more. But I do think having Aaron Jones on just one team is just very nice to see with Justin Jefferson. And Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, CJ Stroud is very nice. James Conner on this team as well. So that's like a start high on wide side on running back. There's just a lot of this tight end room isn't great. Um, Xavier Legette would be like the fifth wide receiver. This is just like a Seahawk stack at wide receiver, and then do something else at running back. The next team, JSN once more, Amon-Ra, DJ Moore, Josh Downs. See a lot of Josh Downs, Jalen McMillan, Amon-Ra, DJ Moore. The next one I have Gibbs on this team with Jalen Hurts and Bryce Young. I have James Cook, Brian Robinson, Chuba Hubbard. That running back room looks nice. Ayuk, though, Devontae, Michael Pittman Jr., Brian Thomas, Josh Downs. That wide receiver core doesn't look great at all. And then I have Brock Bowers holding down the fort at tight end. So that one's all right. That's a super flex. Another super flex. So I went like Jalen Hurts, and then I'll just wait on quarterback with Bryce. The next super flex I did Burrow and Daniels. So that was probably picked at the end. I did Jonathan Brooks, which is kind of weird as my first running back. So this is more so a wide receiver heavy build. Chase Brown holding that one down, which is nice. I think one of my only Chase Brown teams. I think I wasn't very high on him. I got him later in the year, but that was a bad analytical perspective. Because I was hearing so much on the Zach Moss stuff. So I wish I had more Chase Brown. Let's see. So Chase Brown on this team is like the only good running back, and hopefully Ford gets there. Nico, Devontae, Terry, Cooper, Downs, Addison looks very nice there. Jonnu and Bowers, another good squad at the super flex position. So I could super flex quarter wide receiver or quarterback. I don't know. My running back is the only thing that's hurting me there. Maybe Algier can get in. Maybe he does good. You got the marathons. My marathons, I have a rookie build right here, which is kind of weird. Neighbors, Ladd, Brian Thomas, Burton. And we have Adam Thielen with the old man Thielen, Mooney. and Kittle at the tight end position. I got Gibbs up top, Kyron, Connor, and then Hurts at quarterback. That looks cool. Um, Overall, I think I had a lot of the same picks. Oh, there's another Aaron Jones team with Rashad White. That's different with Baker. There's McCarthy, Amon-Ra, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley on this one. Cool, cool. JSN. Yeah, there's a couple teams that can win. Hopefully Trey McBride, Brock Bowers brings me money. Um, but I like the teams that I built, and the only big board team that I advanced. I just was picking a lot of the same players. I didn't know a lot about best ball early in that year. Patrick Mahomes, Purdy, and Bryce. I was just a big lover of Bryce. Hope he does good. Gibbs, Mixon, Walker. I think like I said, I liked Madison early on, and then Corum was just like Corum. Alexander, Matt, Son, Lake, Corum. There we go. Lake Corum does look really big though for the size he is, like husky. Drake London, JSN, Xavier Legette, Keon Coleman. Two rookies. JSN with a new offensive coordinator. Drake London with a new quarterback. Locking on this team as well. Rico, Brendan Rice, Jerome Ford, and Jacob Cowing is crazy. And Logan Wilson, Logan Thomas is just crazy as well. Ferguson. But in terms of all my teams, I think my analysis was good on all the players. So at quarterback, my highest exposure quarterback was Geno Smith, followed by Jayden Daniels, with Bryce Young. After that, Caleb, Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen, just all quarterbacks that I thought were elite. I wish I had more Hurts, more Purdy should be up there. And then, Baker's probably going to be higher too for me next year. But a lot of the quarterbacks that I did like that I thought were justifiable at justifiable prices. Running back, Chuba Hubbard, my highest owned running back, Chuba Hubbard. We have Kyron up there too, skipping over Herbert. Braylon, he hopefully will get me there. Ford, hopefully he'll get me there. Rico, but all those players you saw in my squads are very much advancing. Rico getting me there. I think shout out to Pat Corain. He was one of the guys that influenced me on Rico. He did look pretty explosive last year, so I thought they were going to use him a little bit more. At least earlier in the year, they finally got him going. Nick Chubb, that he was going to have like a Cinderella type story, but he does not. Then we have J.K. Dobbins that I was very high on, Charbonnet and Walker right after that, with almost about the same amount. Connor, and then Pollard down lower. And then David Montgomery, I should have had more of him. Austin Eckler should have had more of him. Pacheco, sneaking into Pacheco went in, but that was more injury. I think he would have gotten there too as well. I was very in on him. James Cook was very good. A lot of these players I thought were in very weird ranges. I think it'll be a cycle more or less. I think probably every 4 years with a good draft class, we're gonna see a lot of like players either retiring in the next couple of years, or just hitting their age cliff. We're gonna see a lot of cycling going on in the next 4 years. Maybe a couple of you guys will have better years next year or the year after. And it'll be harder to draft as good teams and do. It's gonna be probably more difficult for me to analyze players in situations like this one. I got Chase Brown wrong with 7.7%, and Bucky Irving wrong as well. But I think I was very smart about having like Achan, ETN, even Brees Hall so low, Ty Chandler, um, Trey Benson, Raheem Mostert, Rashad White. It's kind of getting there. Zamir White. I was wrong on Tyron Tracy. I was wrong on Alvin Kamara. I was wrong on Josh Jacobs. I think Stevenson I was more so right about. Um, I think majority of my picks were correct. In terms of wide receivers, they were more all over the place. I did like the draft capital of Xavier Legette. I liked Xavier Legette with Spencer Rattler. I thought those two worked well together, so I thought Bryce and Legette would work nice as well. Legette just needs to have hands, man. He just needs to get his hands there. But I think he's doing pretty okay. 4 touchdowns isn't horrible. 67 targets isn't horrible. But I hope he hits in the coming weeks. JSN, one of my highest exposed wide receivers, followed by T. Higgins. He was looking good, but yesterday was not great. 10 targets, only a couple of receptions though. So hopefully his average depth per target is higher coming weeks. Lockett, I didn't know he was gonna fall off so much, but having 511 yards isn't horrible on the season, but he still really hasn't produced as much as we would like. Deontay Johnson, just bad analytical support. He was just more like the trade got him, and Bryce wasn't hitting when he was needing to hit when Johnson was there. I think if Bryce hit when Johnson was there, Johnson would still be there. We have Slayton there. I think that was just bad analysis on my part on a bad team. Jalen McMillan, it was just like he's going to take away targets from, or one of these Giants guys are going to hopefully help Malik Neighbors get there. Jalen McMillan was another pickup that I liked coming into the year. Just low on guy, talked a lot of coach speak. Josh Downs, DK Moore on that. I'm going to get a little bit of exposure to him, but not like in the 15% higher than him. Rashee Rice really hurt us all, but it was bound to happen because he was so mispriced. Garrett Wilson, I liked him a lot, but if his quarterback was better, I think if his quarterback was like a Joe Burrow, even on like a Josh Allen or a Lamar, I think he would be in a whole another universe. But he's a very good player, and hopefully he can get the quarterback that we all like. Terry McLaurin, he has now his quarterback. He's probably the new Terry McLaurin, to be honest. League Neighbors, Amon-Ra getting there with 12.2%. Hopefully he'll see more yards and more targets. Makes 5 catches in week 13. Hopefully he makes more. Hopefully he gets another touchdown in there. But he's almost at his touchdown number from last year. Romudunze after that. He's putting up like Lockett numbers, but Lockett was going lower. Puka, wish I had more Puka, but he's really coming on. Michael Pittman, just drafted way too high. Brian Thomas, really nice analytical spot on my spot in my eyes. But just a bad team and bad luck for the quarterback. DJ Moore, I think he's the number one, but quarterback is kind of struggling a little bit. And Caleb Nico gets hurt. He was my highest Houston Texan. Ayuk gets hurt. He was my highest owned, I believe, 49er. Tank after that. Um, we have Cooper Kupp. He's coming on. Darnell Mooney, 8%. He's been playing really nice. Jamar, I wish I had really way more of Jamar. I think I was not so good on that one. It was more so for Jamar. Not that I didn't like him. It was more um like his contract issue, and then he could have been the Ayuk, and Ayuk could have played very well. And Jamar could have got hurt. Um, but I think Burrow really gives Jabbar a really, really nice floor, as well as T. And then T played through the whole off season, and we were hearing very high coach speak about Jamar. Um, Dobbs and Reed and Wicks all around the same range. Lamb, I thought just he was going too high for the team that he was going to be on, as well as Marv. So I caught that one. Those two. Christian Watson, just another Packers guy. Mike Evans, I should have got more of him, but he got hurt in the course of the season. We just can't time injuries. That's the main thing, and I got to be higher on these players and just hope for the best and hope and pray that my wide receivers don't get injured. Lad McConkey, just a good spot. Only wide receiver on that team. Waddle, you have Waddle maybe doing some good in the end. Keon Coleman, maybe he'll do more but Amari Cooper's now on that team. Jefferson, I thought that one was another one where I just thought Lamb wasn't the guy, and I was really on, as you guys saw, 12% of Amon-Ra. Just in my opinion, I wanted someone on that as my first pick, not to get behind, but at least be able to get me there with Amon-Ra. But now in the playoffs, you want like a guy like Jefferson as your 101, like your Jamar Chase. And then after that, we have Khalil Shakir. I should have got more with him. And then we just have a couple more. JMO, I think I'm gonna get way more of him next year. Devontae Adams. He played a good game last game, but I think he'll probably continue to play good. But hopefully Garrett Wilson gets me there. Chris Godwin got hurt. Cortland Sutton. I was very smart on Debo. I thought the 49ers were going to take a hit, but I wasn't really thinking it was going to be Debo. Or I was thinking it was going to be Debo, him probably getting hurt, but not being so productive in what he was doing. Tyreek was another place that I just kind of full faded. I didn't see Tua getting hurt, but I did see Tyreek kind of falling off his target or his routes ran. Chris Olave, just on a bad team, wasn't really seeing it. Drafted way too high. People were willing to draft Olave that high, but Pittman, no. Like, basically the same player, just around later. I was willing to draft Pittman, but not Olave. Round 3, sure. Round 2, still too high. Drake London, I think it was too high, and I hadn't really seen him do all that well. I think he's going to be in the same range, and it's going to be interesting on what I want for Drake London. I think he won't be, I'll have enough, but not so much on him. I think I'll probably want to be overweight in the Bijan area then, and the Mooney again. rather than with Drake London in Atlanta. Christian Kirk, if you guys watched, I called that one a mile away, especially with Brian Thomas on that team. Evan Ingram, his offense just isn't that good, and Christian Kirk's the third wide receiver on that offense. Brandon Cooks is cooked. Zay Flowers, I was wrong about that one, like I said, but I will fix that one. Going, and then Juwan Jennings was just I wasn't opening my third eye to Juwan Jennings. I did think he was very nice in the Super Bowl. But they brought on Ricky Pearsall, and I was like, okay, they're gonna just bring on Ricky Pearsall. I'm like, how much Ricky Pearsall? I had 5% of Ricky Pearsall, so I wish those were switched. But that's okay. And then last but not least, my tight ends. I have Trey McBride at the top with Brock Bowers, Jatavian Sanders, Jonnu Smith. 4 very good guys that you really like to see on your team. Upper echelons of 15% if we round up with Jonnu's. Dalton Kincaid was another highest pick. In my opinion, that was more like I liked the quarterback he was attached to. He's going to go relatively lower next year, and I'm going to like that one. Tyler Conklin. I thought Aaron was going to be better. Pat Fryermuth, just the number 2 on his offense, like Ferguson, which is why those guys are drafted so high, or why I have so much exposure to them. Luke Musgrave. I don't know why I got that one. It was more so like I don't know who's the number 1 and he can emerge. But it was so clear in the coach speak that it was Tucker Kraft. Noah Fant, too much of him. I think he's just like he'll get you there maybe sometimes. Isaiah Likely. I think the Seahawks might get another tight end. That would be interesting. Draft a good tight end, or Barner will come on next year, which will be pretty interesting. Isaiah Likely, he was just going to be probably going to be that number 2 for me in that passing offense after Andrews. Andrews right under him. Laporta, 10%. I think Laporta was going too high. I like the offense, though, so I was willing to draft Laporta. Mark Andrews, I just thought if they're going to pass, they're going to pass to Andrews. But I wasn't too in on Baltimore at all. So Baltimore have Deontay doesn't count. I had Lamar at 12%, Likely at 11.5, Andrews at 9, Devontae Walker 6.4, Keaton Mitchell at 5, Derrick Henry at 2.5, Zay at 1. I think Justice Hill is very valuable, and I think he should be better for best ball next year, especially in like full PPR. George Kittle, I should have been higher, but I was more in on him on DraftKings. So I'm glad I got that pairing with him and Purdy on DraftKings. But I did advance a couple of teams like you guys are seeing. Tucker Kraft finally got more of him when he was being healthy at the end of the summer. Evan Ingram, Cole Kmet, we were hearing a little bit of negativity on him. And then Evan Ingram was okay. Travis, I thought he was going to hit an age cliff. He kind of does. But their offense is good, or at least decent. And he's like the only receiving option. D-Hop kind of helps me that he got traded there. Kyle Pitts was not in on him. He just didn't look like a good moving tight end, in my opinion. Hunter Henry, bad offense. Mike Gesicki, I just didn't really see it, but he was attached to Burrow, so I should have been in on that one. David Njoku, just not when I think of tight end, I don't think of Njoku. And there's a couple other guys, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys keep following me. I hope you guys do good. I hope you guys enjoy the Basketball Mania playoffs. the best ball playoffs. I hope your advance rates continue, and we I hope to see you guys in the coming weeks, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. If you guys do like these videos and think I am pretty smart in my analysis, drop me a follow, like, subscribe, a comment, and follow me on Twitter on the Rafael Ibarra at the Rafael Ibarra, all lowercase spelled like that. The Rafael Ibarra, and you can tag me in something or shout me out. I'm willing to answer anything. Just want to grow this channel. All right, guys. I will see you guys in the coming weeks, maybe after in a couple of weeks after the Christmas holiday. To share maybe how much I won. Maybe I'll just do that over Twitter or just show you guys just advancing teams. But probably in the next couple of weeks, I will not share anything. But I hope to see you guys soon. Later.